And there's Councilor Andrade. We're all here now. That's good.
You're now streaming live on YouTube.
Thank you. Just give it another half minute or so, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, I have 7 o'clock. We all agreed. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the regular meeting of council for March 1st, 2022, being held electronically, and we're honored to gather in the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. Before I begin this night's meeting, I'd like to read the following statement. On behalf of the town of Gibsons, I want to make it clear that we stand in solidarity with President Zelensky and the people of Ukraine and all Ukrainian Canadians in British Columbia and Canada-wide. We stand united with the global community, condemning this unprovoked act of aggression that has sent tens of thousands of Ukrainians fleeing their homes in fear of their lives. Our thoughts and prayers are with the people of Ukraine, their families and loved ones. We call for peace and a swift end to the aggression. We stand with Ukraine. I think it's very important that we acknowledge what's going on in the world, because I think it does affect people in our community, affects people in the province, in Canada, and in other parts of the world. I think it's a very sad thing to see, but it is today a reality, and hopefully that there'll be a swift end to it, a peaceful end, a proper negotiated end, where everybody can go in their corners and take a time out. So that being said, I will call the meeting to order. I ask for approval of the agenda. Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. And some of you might notice that Councillor Lumley is not with us tonight. He's busy doing some other things. So adoption of the minutes for the regular council meeting of February 15, 2022. Would somebody like to move adoption? Councillor Andrade, Councillor Kroll, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Business arising for the minutes. Is there anything, council? Being none, this week we have a proclamation for Social Work Week. And I understand that John Richmond and Casey Laviolette is going to be with us to speak to this proclamation. John or Casey, are you there? There is Casey.
Hi, I'm here. Thanks so much for inviting us.
Welcome.
Oh, I think John is here as well.
Okay.
So I thank you very much. This Social Work Week is in a couple of weeks. And hi, John. And thanks to the town of Gibsons for adopting this. I'm a vice president of the BC Association of Social Workers. John is the local regional branch representative. And social workers work in all sorts of areas here on the Sunshine Coast, in healthcare, child protection, private practice, and we're really glad to be here and working and living in the town of Gibsons and traditional territory of the Squamish Nation.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate what you do in our communities as well. John, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, thank you very much to Gibsons Council for proclaiming Social Work Week. We really appreciate that, and we very much see ourselves as partners working with the town of Gibsons and other key players in the region to improve the social conditions and social situation on the Sunshine Coast. And we know that it's been a difficult time for everybody, certainly for the folks in Gibsons. through the pandemic. And so with social workers being proud to have been on the front lines of that, of service provision and working in a wide range of fields. I think, as Casey mentioned, we're in healthcare, social services, criminal, the criminal justice system, and many of us are in private practice on the coast working in affordable housing and other fields. And so again, very proud to be on the front lines. And thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for your opening comments about the Ukraine. We certainly stand in solidarity with the Ukrainian people in the face of this unprecedented aggression, and also encouraging everybody to practice a lot of self-care, because I know that for many people, not just people personally affected or who have family, but also I think everybody is feeling very anxious at this time with what's happening. And so to reach out for help if you need it, no shame in asking for help. That's always the first step, and to take care of yourselves through this challenging time. So again, thank you very much. Thanks to everybody on council.
Excellent. Thank you, John, and thank you for that invitation. I think that people are listening and we can hear people. We'll certainly make that known to them. So thank you. We do have a proclamation then from the office of the mayor, William Beamish, in recognition of Social Work Week. Whereas the primary mission of the social work profession is to enhance well-being and help meet the basic needs of all people, especially the most vulnerable in society. And whereas social workers know from experience that poverty and trauma can create lifelong social and economic disadvantages. And whereas social workers are change agents who put the ideals of citizenship into action every day through major legislative, regulatory, and social policy victories. And whereas social workers support diverse families in every community, understanding that individuals and communities together can bring about group change. And whereas social workers help people in every stage of life to function better in their environments, improve their relationships with others, and solve personal and family problems. And whereas research shows that all people, no matter their circumstances, at some time in their lives, may need the experience of a skilled social worker. Now therefore, I, William Beamish, Mayor of Gibsons, do hereby proclaim March 13 to 19, 2022, as Social Work Week in the town of Gibsons. Proclamation number 2022-03, March 1, 2022. Well, thank you very much for that. And council, does council have any questions or comments I'd like to make at this time? No. Councillor Kroll?
I'd just like to thank you for the contribution you bring to the community. I think, people just don't realize how many people you have working in the community that help take in the slack when people do fall through the cracks. And it's, an incredibly valuable service, and I just totally applaud the work you do.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Thank you both very much. Now you can choose to stay with us, go watch the State of the Union address, or just have the rest of the evening to yourselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Door number 2, door number 3. Yeah. Take care. Good night now. Okay, at this time on our agenda, we're going to go to inquiries, an opportunity for anybody to ask a question about any of the agenda items that are on tonight's meeting that we are going to be discussing.
If anyone has a question to put to council about an item on the agenda, please raise your hand. Mayor Beamish, I see no hands raised.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We'll then go on to committee reports. 7.1 is the Police Transition Select Committee from February 9, 2022. The minutes are there before you, council. I'm chair of that committee. Are there any questions that I can answer for you? The intent at this time is to transition that committee to an advisory committee so that we know that we didn't reach the 5,000 population, but we still have a need to kind of work with the policing community and with the community. And we'll talk about that a little later this evening, as a matter of fact, is how the advisory committee can can work with council. Probably meeting less regularly. I believe that CIO Brown is going to update the terms of reference for this committee, and there'll be new terms of reference to adopt, but all the members of the committee agreed to stay on in an advisory role, at least in the short term. So I appreciate that. The next, let me have a motion, if I could, to receive all reports, correspondence, and I don't believe any, well, we have a bylaw at the end there, Nate, but let's do that. And yes, the bylaw as well on the agenda. Councillor D'Andrade, Councillor Crowell, thank you. All in favor of that? Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll go on to Hololens Cultural Corner Select Committee, February 10, 2022. These are the minutes. Somebody like to care to move the minutes? Councillor Crowell, thank you. Councillor D'Andrade, all in favor of the minutes? Thank you. Are there any questions arising from the minutes? Councillor Ladwig is here as chair of that committee. I'd be pleased to answer them for you. Okay, seeing none, thank you, Councillor Ladwig, for the work of that committee. I think it's very interesting. It'll give us all something to kind of meet around and talk about. I look forward to that opportunity. Great. Committee of the whole meeting of February 15, 2022, the minutes, and this is a recommendation that the minutes be received. We care to move that. Councillor Crowell, Councillor D'Andrade, again, all in favor of receiving the minutes? Thank you. Under those minutes is a 7.3.2, the short-term rental regulations, housing-centric classification system. At this point in time, it's a recommendation is that council direct staff to proceed with bylaw amendments to implement short-term rental regulations as outlined in the statement of intent completed by the third space planning dated January 12, 2022 and updated January 24, 2022 which focuses on a housing-centric classification system. Now, this is a direction of staff to draft a bylaw. This is not an adoption of a bylaw. There will be a public hearing on this project. It will give people in the community an opportunity to ask questions and challenge the bylaw and challenge council. And once we get the bylaw in place, they will go to first and second reading of the bylaw. And then after that point, you have the public hearing. So that will be scheduled a little later. So at this point in time, would somebody care to move that recommendation? Councillor Crowell, seconded by Councillor D'Andrade. Any further discussion at this time? I know that this is kind of a challenging issue for some in the community, so I do anticipate we'll have a good conversation around it. Councillor D'Andrade.
Yeah, it's just somehow I cannot recall if I know at one point in the discussion I touched upon how are we gonna follow up and monitor the result, right? But I don't know if we establish some mechanism, because my only concern is how we're gonna make sure that, you know, whatever number of houses that were empty, now they are not empty or something like that. How can we measure the success of the bylaw? I think if we don't have a solution right now, we have to invest in a solution, because obviously this is the best we have. We understand, we went through a lot with this bylaw, and we know many people complain there's a lack of data, and it is true. We have not been able to prove that renting, you know, having short term really impact. It apparently seems that impact, and there has been, I think, other municipalities that showed some sort of improvement. But I think my only concern is that we don't develop some, you know, reliable mechanism. That's what I'm saying. So I think we just have to invest in that. So perhaps maybe when they present, we can have a discussion in this regard, because I think it's really important.
Yeah. Maybe third place planning has some ideas around that as well.
Yeah.
Councillor Crowell.
To Councillor D'Andrade's question, one of the things that was discussed was including in the business license for short-term rental sufficient revenue to actually be able to contract one of the monitoring services for short-term rentals. Like, there are a number of services available that monitor over 100 short-term rental platforms. So
Yeah.
That's definitely.
Yeah, something we can do the before and after, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much, and that's approved. Administration reports. The first report is from the Director of Infrastructure Services regarding an Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program grant application.
Thank you, Mayor Beamish.
Maybe
You can hear me okay?
we can. Thank you.
So this is largely kind of just dotting some T's and crossing I's. The council had already directed staff to make an application to the Canada Infrastructure Program grant to enhance Gooseberg Creek within Labonte Park. And we had enough funding to support a project of up to $1 million. The application has been submitted. The value of the works came in at $400,804. And as part of the application, the province requires specific wording on some council resolutions. And so the last two resolutions or recommendations there are those resolutions that are to be submitted to fully complete our grant application. As with many of these grant applications, they are willing to take these resolutions after the closing of the grant. So that's what I'm looking for from you now. Nothing new, except that I suppose that the project ultimately came in at, as I say, around $400,000.
Mr. Newman, for those who are watching and may not have an agenda in front of them, could you just give a quick overview of the scope of the work on this project?
You bet. So Labonte Park is the small park that lies between Bay Road and the harbor. And it has been a location where frequently, because of high tides, there's flooding, but also because of the amount of water coming down the creek. And it's a fairly groomed, I guess you would say, park. And the program or the grant application is intended to better channelize the flow. It'll be a little bit more meandering. It would have native plantings on the banks, and will actually be able to act almost as a demonstration for anybody else who has a creek running through their property as to what native plantings could look like, and we also want to be leading by example. In addition to the work actually within the park, there is a culvert leading between the park and the ocean, and that will be replaced with a fish-friendly culvert. And then the culvert under Bay Road will also be replaced with a similar fish-friendly culvert.
Is this will you be doing any fish counts at the same time?
I know that it's a good question. I know that recent investigations and monitoring has shown that there are presence of fish in there. I can certainly check into how that could be done.
And the fish window for working there, what is the window for that work?
It's usually somewhere between July and September 15th, but it does depend on the species of fish. So, you know, we will be working within whatever those regulations are.
Council, would somebody care to move the recommendations? Councilor Crowell, Councilor D'Andrade, any discussion? Hearing none, thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. And I'd like to acknowledge that Colton Rockford is with us tonight, our Alternative Youth Council. Welcome, Colton. Nice to see you. The next item on our agenda is the Director of Planning for the Development Variance Permit application for Lot A on Skyline Drive to increase the building height by 0.6 of a meter for a new single-family dwelling. And the report is in your package, council, that we considered at the last meeting. So who will introduce that?
I can introduce that, Mr. Mayor. I'll
Thank
just
you.
share my screen. I have a short presentation,
Okay.
a few slides here. Hopefully I can do this properly this time. There, are you seeing my notes page or?
Yes, no, we don't see your notes.
Oh, okay. Oh, it worked. Okay. So this application is for a variance to increase the maximum permitted height in the R1 zone for a single family dwelling on a vacant lot. So here's a site plan of the lot. So it is on Skyline Drive. Skyline wraps around, so it fronts Skyline on both sides. The front lot line is to the east at the higher elevation, and it slopes down. So near to this lot line on the front, the site is relatively flat, and then it falls steep down towards the west. The property is currently vacant and surrounded by single-family residential homes. So this is the south elevation of the proposed home. The solid red line in this picture here shows the maximum allowed building height of 8 meters, and the dashed line shows what they're asking for a height increase. And they're asking for it because of the clerestory windows, which are shown right here. Because of the site's topography and because it slopes down, it looks like it appears as a 7.2 meter, it appears as though it's 7.2 meters in height from the street, but actually because of the slope, the way it is calculated, it is 8.6 meters. So it's 0.6 meters over the height. This image here shows the site plan and the building envelope, and it shows the black dotted line shows the trees that they're trying to protect, and it will protect the views from the neighbors as well. So we sent out notification letters. We received one neighbor comment in support of the variance, and the comment is just included here because it was received after the agenda was published. And it says, as owners of the adjacent property, we would very much like to go on record as fully supporting the variance request as outlined in file number 3220-Skyline-Lot A. We firmly believe that the requested variance is essential given the challenging contours of the property, and we also believe that the proposed residence will be an enhancement to our neighborhood. In closing, we would urge you to grant this variance. So the recommendations from the staff report are summarized here. Council may either approve the variance or reject it. Also included in here is a recommendation that the mayor provides an opportunity for those affected by the variance to be heard. So that's the end of my presentation. I will stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Director. Before I go to council for questions, I would like to ask if there's anybody in the audience this evening who would like to step up and have a comment on this variance application. If that's why you're here, this is the opportunity to do that.
If anyone wishes to speak to council on this issue, please raise your hand. Mayor Beamish, I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you. Then council, does council have any further questions? I know you went through this last week, but seeing none, would somebody care to move the recommendation that the council approve the variance? Councillor Kroll, Councillor Ladwig, all in favor? Thank you very much. Thank you. That's approved. I'm sure the people will be happy and be able to get on with their construction project. Council reports. We didn't get a chance to do this last week. I'm not going to go back in history too far. So that, but does anybody have anything that they would like to report? Councillor Ladwig.
I just have a small report, and in doing so, I actually also have a small proposal for Colton to consider, if you'd be willing. So for the past 3 weeks, I've been trying to take my family to a swimming pool on the Sunshine Coast, and I mean any swimming pool, but Gibson swimming pool, Seashell swimming pool. And I don't know if people have been following this, but our swimming pools right now are alternating days of being open. Did you guys know this? I'm not sure.
Yeah, the lack of lifeguards. Yeah.
Lifeguards, exactly. And so I spoke to the people behind the desk at the Seashell Pool, and they informed me of that. And I just thought to myself, it really surprised me, because when I was young, a lifeguard job was a really coveted position. It pays very well. It looks great on your resume. It's great training. And I was surprised that we're struggling to staff those positions. And so it occurred to me, if Colton was interested, it could be a really cool project if you were interested in maybe talking to the Chamber of Commerce and maybe a few local businesses and trying to identify a few jobs that are really needed in this community that would be well suited for the youth. And then I'm not sure what committees or forums you have in the high school, but maybe try to promote them in some way and just raise awareness that these jobs are really needed and would benefit from their participation. And who knows where that could go? Maybe we could get some training happening with the SCRD or something like that. So anyways, it just occurred to me that I thought that might be a neat role for you if you're interested. No pressure. I'll just put you on the spot, but I just want to put that out there.
Good.
Yeah, I am interested in that. I'll check that out.
Yeah. And I'd be happy to
Yeah.
talk to you more if you're interested.
Yeah. The Chamber of Commerce is right next door to the high school and the mall there. Easy to drop in and talk to Chris. He's the manager of the Chamber of Commerce. So good place to start, because he would have lots of ideas, I'm sure. Councillor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. And to Councillor Ladwig's comment, one of the issues was a lot of the lifeguards lost their qualification during COVID because there was no training available. And lifeguards have to renew their training more frequently than other first aid certificates. So it was a huge problem during COVID. And it was one of the, one of the things that would actually led to the delay of the Gibsons pool reopening. And from it's just become there's just a backlog of training for lifeguards. But, to the volunteer aspect of it and getting into it, it's a critical aspect to the well-being of the community, having that pool open.
It is, yeah. Why don't you carry on, Councillor Kroll?
Sorry?
Why don't you carry on with I assume are you finished, Councillor Ladwig? Your reports? No.
I won't go too far back. I attended the emergency housing meeting yesterday. I think some of the issues that came up at that meeting yesterday were issues that came up at the committee of the whole today with the housing report. It's finally it looks like the RFP's gone out with respect to the hiring of the position for the housing coordinator, who will be operating through the regional district on behalf of all of the housing needs on the coast. Something I shared, I guess it was at the meeting last week. At the moment, the TV show Still Standing is coming to Gibsons on the 7th of April. They've already reached out to some community members. They've done Zoom interviews with them. I have no idea of the 50 some odd pages of contact material I gave them, what they're actually going to run with. It goes from the writers, it goes to the producers, and then the producers basically decide what they're going to do. But I really appreciate all the support that's come from the community with suggestions of, what makes this community unique. And in spite of the fact that TV show came here 50 years ago and put us on the map and brought with it sort of benefits and, potential disadvantages. The little community was suddenly put, on a pedestal in front of the world, not just the country. So it has had definite impacts on the community. And in spite of it, Johnny's going to tell us how we've managed to remain still standing. So
Good.
I will cut it off about there.
Thank you. Yeah. Councillor Dean Drive? You're muted.
Sorry, I attended the webinar from the Nicholas Sontag. It was really good. Mayor Beamish was there. I think Councilor Crowe too. I really appreciate it because they not only focus on the species, but they give such an overall and everybody and historic, and as much as we know the history, it was really good to see pictures. I think it was fantastic. So I was really happy to, and then hear again of all the wonderful work they're doing. But many people attended. Actually, it was really well attended. I also participated on the 25th on the BC Watershed Security Fund. Actually, it was Pathways to Action in the BC Watershed Security Fund. It was a lot of municipalities, municipal staff counselors, and obviously we have previously discussed issues, and our issues are their issues as well. Big one, we don't have jurisdiction over the watershed. Some municipalities have, but a lot don't. Activities, mining, forestry development, and and there was a lot of ideas provided. I will share the ideas later with council. One thing I have spoken, because one of the things that they mentioned in this meeting is that they would be the province will be having a meeting with municipalities on the 10th. When I asked our CAO, he said that we are already providing information, discussing with the province, so perhaps we don't need to. But Mayor, I think he is going to bring back this material on the 15th, but you will be on vacation.
I will be on vacation at that time. So if anybody else can attend that, that'd be great, because it really is a good group, and they have the same issues that we have, many municipalities around the province. So I'm really pleased, for one, that our CAO is back, because this is a project that's near and dear to his heart, as we all know, watershed. So he's already been meeting with the regional district on this. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, he mentioned to me that kind of broken out a kind of work relationship relative to Gibsons taking the lead on water, and filing a report on this consultation, and the SERD through their mapping services and others made a presentation or report on the forestry issues. Okay. So it's nice to be able to divide the labor in some of those projects, and recognizing that there are concerns.
I think, Mayor, if I can, perhaps I didn't explain properly. My understanding, where Manny spoke with me, is because all the compilation is coming to council on the 15th, and you won't be here. So just ensure that you provide feedback before. Yeah. So whatever we decide, it has your feedback, because my understanding is that this has to move, yes. Keep moving, right? So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Colton? Yeah, go ahead, Colton.
Sort of three things have happened in my last month, because I wasn't here in the last meeting. That was actually my birthday last meeting.
I think we heard that, yes.
Yeah. So now I'm 17. But within the last, I think it was 3 weeks ago, I joined Interact in the school.
Good.
So
excellent.
I'll be looking for more volunteer opportunities there. My second thing is that last month was Black History Month, yes, as we all know. So I did the announcements for that for the school. I wrote announcements each week, and they went on the morning announcements in the high school. So I thought that was pretty good. Excellent. And also at the school, gardening club is going to be starting up again, which I've been spearheading now that we're going back into the season of spring. So yeah, I'll try to get that to go well, and hopefully we get more people joining.
Excellent. And my house is not too far from the school if you want to garden the weekend.
Okay.
Just to let you know that. Yeah. Councilor Kroll.
Thank you, Colton. What I would mention, as you're now in the Interact Club, in the past, the Interact Club has been very active with us with the community dinners. And we have the Easter community dinner coming up on the, help me, Mayor Beamish, because
Easter Monday. Easter
Monday.
Yeah.
So we moved it off off Easter Sunday to the Monday, but we're always looking for volunteers.
Yeah.
So we'll be reaching out to you.
It's a great opportunity. Councilor Deandra?
It's just a message for Colton, since he's talking about the gardening. I believe we received an email today. The Quality Farm is putting an incredible event on a gardening event. I love where they bring all the areas together, invasive species and many other areas, right? Water conservation. And so I think it will be a wonderful event for you to discuss with your club or the school. And it's from 11 to 3 p.m., I believe, this Saturday.
Yeah.
Quality garden, you said?
Yeah, Quality Farms.
Quality Farm.
That's
Okay.
on, Payne Road.
I'll forward Colton the email because it's not in our reading file. It came late.
Yeah.
Sorry, what?
I will forward you the invitation we received to that event at Quality Farms.
Okay, thank you.
And did you have anything else to add, Colton?
I think that's all.
Good,
Thank
thank you. Excellent. For myself, I've been attending regular meetings on early childhood education with CAPU. It's a program that they're looking at actually offering training this fall in that. It comes about because there was a coastwide survey on the need for early childhood education and daycare. And Seashell is actually planning on developing a facility, daycare facility. So one of the challenges is trained people. So they're looking at providing this training on the coast. And I think it's going to be coming this fall. So there will be announcements about that. I was on this SCRD panel, tax review panel on the 24th, and the corporate services also on the 24th. And then Councilor Crowell has covered for me there in the afternoon. The Easter dinner, as I say, I think our last dinner is Christmas, served approximately 800 meals between Gibsons and Seashell. And every volunteer who comes out there is blessed, and they go away saying, when's the next one? And how can I help? And we had, Councilor Crowell has been a stalwart. He actually is the kitchen guru, so they don't actually go in the kitchen without his permission, and so that he looks after the menu and all that, and I get to do the marshalling in front of outside the room and do the setup and organizing people and getting them volunteers going. But we had, as I say, staff, counselors, staff and their families came, volunteers from the community. People just show up and want to help. And as I say, they're really blessed when they do. So another opportunity, and that'll be, as Councilor Crowell says, on Easter Monday, and the dinner starts at 3 o'clock usually, or 4 o'clock rather. But the setup, we'll be doing the setup and all the preparation that day. And I know that some of the people who have actually brought their kids to it the kids have been blessed, because this year I'll be organizing, Heather and I'll be organizing Easter eggs, and the kids can hand them out, just like they did the Christmas presents at Christmas and the Christmas cards. It's a really real joy for them to be able to find another child their age and say, hey, would you like a present? Or give me $10 and I'll give you a present. I don't know what they do. So, but somehow they go away happy. So that's really good. And tomorrow we have the Public Art Committee. That's 7 o'clock. We will be going through, and I've invited council to that. This will be the only time you're going to get to see all of the proposals. And there's 15 proposals. And Tracy has prepared a PowerPoint presentation to walk us through them. We're not going to be doing the evaluations. This is just kind of everybody kind of get that overview, familiarity with the submissions that came in. And so that you can have a look at those and understand just how well, we all know how artistic our community is, but how dedicated some people are. The emails we got with those were also great statements. So that's tomorrow at 7 o'clock in council chambers. And I think it'll be a masked event, so you're welcome to be there and come. I can't think of anything else to say. As I mentioned previously to council, I'll be taking the third and fourth week of March off, but starting around the 14th. That's when Heather's on spring break. We have plans to be out of town for a few days and do some other things. So So next item is correspondence, and we have a motion to, so we've already received the correspondence. So this is the weeks ending February 16 and February 22. Is there anything on there, Council, that Council wants to bring forward? Councilor Crowell?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. In the week of the 16th, there was a thing from the Climate Caucus, and I would just recommend, and particularly Colton and the Interact members, the Climate Caucus is very impressed that Gibsons has students on council. You know, the Interact Club and your predecessors have been very proactive with respect to climate change. So I would recommend that, you know, the students certainly look into, there is a BC chapter now of the Climate Caucus. And I'm quite sure that they would certainly welcome your participation. Awkwardly enough, the meetings are usually midday, which might be problematic, but I would certainly recommend to the rest of council that, you know, if you have the time and can, you know, make an appearance periodically, the resource material that they put out is great. Information that's brought to the council is shared right across the board, not only provincially but nationally, and it's a great resource. So that's probably the one thing that I really wanted to draw attention to.
Colton, do you receive copies of the correspondence?
I get these automatic emails about when the meetings are coming up, but otherwise, no, I don't get the correspondence things. I can sort of find it in the minutes of the meetings or in the agendas, but I don't get directly emailed the correspondence, no.
Might be something that we should take to heart and ensure that you are at least some of the material, but there is other information. So maybe it's something that our corporate officer could arrange just for you to be part of the email, because they just send out the correspondence by email as a package to all of council. If you are ever needing to fall asleep at night, it's a very useful tool. And also good to prop up your laptop.
Now we're going to get lots of correspondence. Thank you, Mayor Beamish.
Corporate officer?
Yes, just a heads up that council gets unredacted copies of the correspondence, and for Colton, we might have to do some redactions.
Might take a look at that. Yeah. In other words, just you'll get maybe a page number on, but it's okay. Yeah. Councilor D'Andrade?
Thank you, Mayor. There's several letters that I'm interested talking about, but I will start with, there's actually, we're referring to BC Wildlife Petition. There's two actually, one on the February 16th and one on the January 31st that we didn't go over. But it's pretty much, it's a letter to the House of Commons asking asking the government of Canada and obviously the government of BC as well to empower local persons, those working with licenses, industry and contractors, indigenous communities, ranchers and workers such as firefighters, forestry workers, and all those that see the day-to-day issues and have frontline knowledge to provide feedback on the inconsistencies and shortcomings with regard to forest management and wildlife prevention in order to help bring about much needed change. I think this is very timely because the province is right now getting feedback, to revise their forest management. I thought this was a good letter. One on the 16th is from, it's on page 51. It's from the village of Chase, and on the 31st is on page 99 from District of Stewart. So would council, how does council feel in writing a letter supporting that too?
Yeah. Council, any thoughts? we get these from time to time from other communities, and a lot of them are actually intended to go to UBCM. They're going to be UBCM resolutions, so we end up seeing them there. But if council feels that it's not part of the UBCM process and wants to add their voice, sometimes it's a matter of just adding your voice to the community by sending a follow-up letter. So I'm comfortable with that. If anybody else, yeah. So,
and you're just considering the impact that BC in particular we had with fire. So I thought this was a very important letter to support. Yeah.
So Rebecca, go ahead.
Yeah, so the letter she's referencing is not in the agenda package for today. It's in the CRF that went out, I believe, either yesterday, yesterday evening.
No, there is one. Sorry, Rebecca. There is one on February 16th agenda package.
February 16th?
February 16th, and again, there's another one on the.
Oh, this is the Village of Chase. Okay.
Right.
Okay. My apologies. You're
It's
correct.
It's just a matter of Councilor Andrade would move and somebody second.
Yes.
That we send her a letter in support. Councilor Kroll second. Send a letter also in support of that initiative. And yeah. So any further discussion on that? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, that's approved. Go ahead, Councilor Andrade.
I have a second letter. It's on the February 7th and page 27.
February 7 is not on this agenda.
No, but remember last time we couldn't go over.
That's right. And I don't have it in front of me.
And we have time. We are pretty good today.
I don't have it in front of me.
This letter regards, let me just get the letter because there's so much. It's a letter, it's from which municipality office, Village of Cumberland, but it's actually supporting, endorses a national strategy to address the harm associated with the criminalization of substance use and to ensure that interventions are founded on evidence-based best practices to address the root causes of problematic substance use. Today, I think we also got a letter about, actually in May, about meth use, how it's increased even in Gibsons. And I mean, we are really facing a crisis with all the substance abuse and use and abuse. And my understanding is decriminalization it's the door to resolve this, because the moment this is decriminalized, people can have access to safe drugs. And also there will be more investments in supporting these people for recovery because many people, they are willing to get out, but it's just impossible for them. So that's another, I think is important to continue I find amazing how we are going through this crisis for years now. And, there's always a conversation, but so anyways, perhaps one more letter would support that. So that's.
I don't have that letter in front of me to refer to. I'm sorry, so I can't say. But perhaps others you recall it and have it. There are different ones on decriminalization. I mean, we've gone full bore. I mean, I can remember working with Ottawa and the province on a bill to criminalize addiction. And now we're going full bore around the other ways. It's interesting how these things do the move and through the system. So, Councilor Ladwig, go ahead.
Yeah, I find this topic hard because I don't feel like I'm well enough informed on it to know what the right direction. Like I have heard the decriminalization is the right move. I've also heard that it's not, and I feel like I just don't feel well enough informed, and so I'm a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. I'm uncomfortable endorsing something that is not in front of me to read, so I apologize. Yeah,
I just don't know.
I'm at home. My other reading files at the office. Yeah.
Okay, so we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I may also, okay, so we cannot talk about, because the next item I would like to discuss too is on the council reading file of the 7, which you don't have in front of you, but it's a letter from the skate club, the Sunshine Coast Skating Club, and it's about the issue with the ice. And we have been going through this since election. So I would like just to ask Mayor and Councilor Crow, who are involved in the SCRD, where are we with that? And where, if we can move this forward, what's the situation?
I asked the question when it came up. I said, what is the size of a community that can have the kind of skating requirements that they want? And the response from the manager was that it is bigger than we are, because we just don't have the demand for the ice. So keeping the arena open for the ice will solve for some people, but it will sit empty for the most time. That was the response I got. And so that we've gone through this, we went through this last year. I understand the issue, and I'm quite supportive of the idea. I think they're talking about the Seashelt arena, but it is strictly a dollars and cents issue. Councilor Kroll?
Thank you, Mayor Beamish. I was at the Regional District Board when the hockey and skate community came to speak to the Regional District. And it sadly, it boils down to dollars. Mm-hmm. I think the preferred arena to keep open is the Gibsons arena, because it is more efficient. And the cost of maintaining ice there is less than the Seashelt arena. But the last figures, if I recall correctly, it's about $7,000 a week to keep the ice in. And what was suggested to the community is if enough time could be booked that justified it, they would support it. And what they were finding is that the booking was at about 35%, as opposed to something that was sort of economically viable. It was suggested to both the hockey community and the skating community that they seek corporate support to help offset some of these costs. But it really is, it's a really, really difficult situation. And it's exacerbated by climate, because our arenas weren't fully, the Gibsons arena is better than the Seashelt arena, but it's difficult to justify asking the tax-paying community on a whole to cover these additional costs. And it's also exacerbated by weather, because if we get, we get extremely hot weather early, then the costs go right through the roof.
Councilor Ledwig?
Did we communicate that booking idea to the skate club and to the hockey teams and to the?
It was communicated at board level, yes.
To their boards, not just at just at the SCRD.
The groups made delegations to the various committees with respect to this issue. Okay. So it has been communicated to them the options to try and offset the cost.
Okay. Frustrating part in the whole thing is that I recall, somebody else may recall when the recreation facility was proposed and planned, it was seen as an opportunity for hockey schools and the summer hockey schools and different sorts of things, and just not realizing that opportunity, because there's no ice. But then they have to take it down for maintenance as well. So, and then there's those who want the dry floor for different things. So it's a challenge in a small area. But I certainly sympathize with the youth. I mean, we got a great letter, as you saw, from Mr. Pinot relative to baseball this week, talking about the economic impact of having games and having teams come here and having tournaments. Same thing for ice. That has an economic impact on the community. And maybe we shouldn't just be counting the dollars in the facility. We should be counting the economic impact of the program. And maybe that's an approach that the ice users should take, and taking a look at that in terms of an approach. Councilor Ladwig again?
I totally agree with everything you just said there. I just wanted to add that we do have 2 floors, right? So all they're asking for is one of the 2 arenas to have ice in it. And I just, the argument that some people want the dry floor, it's like, well, there's two of them. I find that argument, doesn't work, but.
Yeah. Councillor Kroll?
I was just going to say that the spin-off to the community benefits have been advocated by both the Hockey Association and the skating group. It was a meeting with placards and signs, and the boardroom was packed.
Yeah. That wasn't this year, though.
No, it was.
That was previous.
But it comes up every year, and sadly, the counter to it is the costs only keep going up.
Yeah. Councillor Diandrade?
I think, Mayor, I understand the challenges, but they wrote down that. Oh no, they wrote to Darnella. Okay, I thought that they were writing directly to us, so I felt like obliged. No, there's a letter directed to Gibson Council, Mayor and Council, so I feel like obliged to respond. And if we don't have the solution, but that we will be pursuing a way, because there's always a way. I just find so challenging that, this is I understand the challenge, but first of all, we are an ice nation. It's like Brazil not having beach volleyball, it's kind of inconceivable. And I understand the challenge of climate change or whatever challenge, but I think we cannot just say, look at this community that have invested, all these kids that have invested so much, the parents that have invested fund, and just say sorry. And that's the part that I feel like, is there any way that we can provide a response and continue the conversation and perhaps I know the coast has many other problems, but
I think you just have to have a resolution. If council supports the ice being retained, pass a resolution, and we'll pass it on to the regional district.
I would support, but I need to see. I don't want to be irresponsible, right? Looking at what's the repercussion of that?
There's a very thick package of correspondence that came in today. Have you seen that one? Yeah, and that's mostly all on ice.
Today?
Yeah, today or yesterday, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. They said it's on my desk. Maybe I just picked it up today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very thick package, and most of it's about ice use. So, Councillor Ladwig, then Councillor Kroll.
Could we put ice use onto our next agenda? If you've got this stack that you're referring to, maybe we should all take a look at it and then maybe consider making them more in a more well.
Because it includes all the SCRD reports and all the background information on the issue. So.
Because I support it too. I agree with Councillor Diandrade. You want to be making a well-informed.
Yeah. Councillor Kroll?
I was just going to suggest that perhaps we reach out to the regional district and ask them to give us a report to council on, what, I've commented on on the meetings I sat in on the regional district. I'm not the regular person on the board right now, so you might have a little more background information, but I think it would be relevant to have someone from the recreation department of the regional district, because it is a nuts and bolts dollar amount that is making the decision. So, I think the groups that addressed the committees and the board were very passionate groups, understandably. But the reality is that it boils right down to who's going to pay for it.
Let's see. What struck me this year is when I believe it was at an infrastructure committee, that the report came forward and there was no inquiries, there was no delegation, there was no parent, and I noted that in my mind. Okay, there's a report on ice use, and it's been there, and if you look around, there's nobody challenging it. Now there's some material out there, but at the time maybe they were not aware that it was on the agenda or what. But it's something that if you want to put it forward to next week And if you want to invite somebody to the regional district to speak to it, or just take a look at the package, I'm sure that the author of the letter would be happy to come and speak to you. Okay. You'll second that. Okay. So on the issue of ice use, Rebecca, if we could make a motion that the ice user, the author of that correspondence, you'll have the package. I know her too. I forget her name. She lives in Parkland. So that we'll invite them to come to the meeting, as well as invite if the SCRD is prepared to come and speak to it at the same time. And then council can then make a informed decision at that time. So come to the next meeting, which is the 15th. My seat will be empty. Yeah. Councilor D'Andrade?
Mayor, the correspondence you mentioned, is it from SCRD meetings or is from someone else?
No, it's from the lady who looks after figure skating.
Okay, figure skating. Okay, this is the skate. Yeah. Okay.
Right, yeah.
Skating club. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So moved by myself, seconded by Councilor D'Andrade. Well, hang on a sec.
No, it was Councilor Ladwig.
Second by Councilor Ladwig. But David
moved by Councilor D'Andrade.
Okay.
Second by Councilor Ladwig.
We got that. Okay. So it's on the table. Councilor Crowley, you wish to speak to it again?
All I wanted to say is that if we're going to address the issue, we need to have both sides present.
I'm going to invite them. Yeah.
You know, because I know the skating group and the hockey group are, you know, they're well prepared, they're incredibly passionate, and you know, I don't, you know, but we need to see both sides of the story.
Yeah. Okay. Take a look for that package of information.
Okay.
Okay, so all in favor of that, invite them to the next one. Okay. All in favor? Okay, that's passed. So
Thank you.
Rebecca, can you follow up on the invitation?
Yes, we will follow up with those invitations. Thank you.
Councilor Ladwig?
Councilor D'Andrade reminded me that we didn't review last week's package. I do have one piece of correspondence I'd just like to bring to council's attention. In the January 31st package, our CAO, Mark Brown, included a report from the Sechelt Chamber of Commerce regarding their builder summit that they did.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and I thought it was a really good report. They stated that the BC Construction Association reports that 8% of our workforce rely on BC construction sector. My personal belief, not statistically founded, but I think the Sunshine Coast is probably much, much higher than that due to our custom home construction side of the industry. And it just occurred to me that considering we've just moved to iCloud for building applications, I'm not sure if folks are aware of that, but we have. And considering we've asked the Director of Infrastructure to update our building permits to include kind of a service requirement checklist. We're asking for a few things right now. It just occurred to me that sometime during this term, it would be great if maybe we asked our Chamber of Commerce or whatnot to kind of check in with our building community to see what's working, what's not, and what we can do to try to help that industry, you know, do their thing. So yeah, I just wanted to raise that as it might be timely to check in with that industry because they are a big part of our economy here in Gibsons.
Councilor Kroll?
I've actually printed the report because it's a really good report, and now my impression was that it was builders from across the coast that attended the meeting. Now there might be some local smaller builders who didn't attend it, but anyway, but I went through it and I flagged there's some really good sections in it, current trends and impact on the construction industry, updating market opportunities, housing crisis. There's like 8 points there that, you know, it's it's a great report, and you know, it should be probably made more available to, you know, people working with our staff as well if they're not aware of it.
So will you follow that up at a later date then and invite them, or how do you want to handle that?
I think maybe what we should do is touch base with staff to just to make sure that, you know, we're not running off in one direction and, you know, they're trying to deal with another direction. I'd be more than happy to liaise through the CAO with staff and make sure they've been copied on the report. I'm sure they have. Just be able to, incorporate it, some of the points in this, even in the report we did today on housing, there's some points, valid points that, should probably be addressed.
Mark?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Beamish. Just to update council, I've been meeting, prior to Mandy returning, with the other two CAOs and our planning departments, and we've had several meetings and outreaching to the building community, how to better serve them with our processes, including special email addresses, special phone-in numbers, those types of things. And as we're currently using SCRD building officials for our department, Leslie Ann actually just told me this afternoon how well informed they are, and they have the respect of the building community here, and appreciate our staffing shortages that we currently have, both in administration and building officials. So I'm not sure we need to take any immediate action other than to keep up the lines of communication, but I certainly welcome any further input from our own Chamber of Commerce and the building community in Gibsons.
Yeah. I have one on the agenda week of February 22, and it's the last item, idea for busking in Gibsons. And that's just by way of letting council know that I have a meeting on Friday at 11:45 with Kevin Crofton and Peter Hill. They're the two gentlemen who stepped up last year for Music on the Landing, and they want to get an early start this year and come and talk about Music on the Landing. In the past, it was been Music on the Landing who also coordinated the busking in the community, and just to have it under one roof so that it wasn't having to have town staff organize things and things like that. So I will be bringing that letter to their attention as well when I talk to them. So. Okay, that's it for correspondence. Oh, Councilor D'Andrade.
I believe it's the February 7. Sorry, it's one of this. There's also a letter from TRAC and regards active transportation, but specifically they're talking about outside on Gibsons Way North Road and southbound on North Road. I just want to acknowledge that. And obviously we received 3 letters today with regard to active transportation. So I hope next budget meeting we have enough time to make a discussion. I just want to acknowledge because they sent this letter with some feedback.
Thank you. Okay, 10.2, Assistant Commissioner Maureen Levy, RCMP, Lower Mainland District Commander. This letter concerns the selection process for somebody to replace Sergeant Poppy Halem. That's right. And so it's the process that they go through. We will be discussing this later on the agenda because of the feedback we received. But just the intention when we first talked with the RCMP on this, Annette Fellner, Superintendent Fellner, the intention was that Gibsons would take the lead on this conversation and meeting, because we were going to be an emerging community and we have different issues in Seashell. Now I'm going to relinquish that back to Darnella, because they actually have the detachment to headquarters in their town, and they pay significant costs for that policing. But there is a note on file that we'll talk later about some of the priorities we're looking at, and then some of the thoughts from the committee members. So we'll look at that. So that's been received. So that's what that's about. So we'll go next to Director of Finance, and we're going to look at the 2022 user rates and parcel tax increases. Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw Amendment 1196-21. This is based on information that was discussed and presented at the January 25th Committee of the Whole. That was a special budget meeting, and then subsequently Council provided direction at the February 15th Council meeting. And so the 5% rate increases that are being proposed in the bylaw amendment are to water and sewer user fees, and they're supported by the long-term financial plans for both the water and the sewer utilities. And these increases are part of a long-term strategy to gradually increase fees as opposed to have significant increases in individual years. And this is to create funds for both utilities that are more financially sustainable. The user rate bylaw amendments are being presented tonight, and the timing of that is so we have the approvals in place before the upcoming utility billing cycle, which begins on April the 1st. And the related parcel tax bylaws, the amendments for those or the new bylaws will be brought to council in late April. And that timing is alongside of the annual tax rate bylaw. And so this one, the rates, fees, and charges amendment bylaw 119621 is being presented tonight for 3 readings. And then I'll bring it back to the next council meeting for adoption, of course, assuming council approves it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions about the report? Not hearing some. Would somebody care to move the 3 readings? Councillor Kroll and Councillor Ladwig, and that is that Town of Gibson's rates, fees, and charges amendment bylaw number 1196/21-22 be given first, second, and third reading. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you very much, and thank you, Director of Finance. It's it's not something you can cut and paste because there's a lot of changes take place. So it's every year you have to go through this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go now to unfinished business, none. New business, none. Notice of motion. Notice of motion. Councilor D'Andrade, did you want to put notice of motion for that Sailor C motion?
I could, but our corporate officer mentioned that we could do this next week. Sorry, the next meeting. And since it's not really an urgent thing, you won't be here, but.
That's right. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I'm happy to put it.
No, I believe you had that conversation with the corporate officer, so it's coming forward. Councillor Kroll.
At one of the meetings I was at with respect to the biosphere and the I understand that that they're looking for a funding model to sort of keep the whole UN designated site functioning. Apparently other designations have applied for trust fund donation, and I've received federal grant. So I think there's a number of things that for that, actually the ongoing working of the biosphere, they're looking to set up a funding model.
That was a Sailor C issue that I was talking about with Councilor D'Andrade, not the biosphere.
Okay, but it's something we should also sort of keep a finger on the pulse with, because they may be looking for community support to endorse what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay. We're talking about something that's not on the agenda and not in any correspondence. So
just feedback on what Councillor Crow said. That I wouldn't worry, because anything regarding the biosphere, we would, on the meetings that we have with the Secretariat, they would discuss this with us. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to the second inquiry section. So anybody who has any questions they'd like to challenge council with, stump the council.
Yes, Mayor Beamish, you have someone with their hand up, Donna Thomas.
I'm going to take Colton's question first.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. Go ahead, Colton.
Sorry, Donna. I just saw this thing in the Coast Reporter. It was from the February 25th publishing day. It was in the letters thing there, and it's Rethink Cutting 35 Trees by Suzanne Pemberton. I'll just read it real quick. The plan to destroy 35 beautiful trees at Gibsons Elementary is not a good one. I find it hard to believe that 35 trees are all suddenly dangerous and potentially ready to fall on people. To say that the best way to mitigate risk of tree failure is removal of the trees, well, we better be getting rid of all the trees, as that may mitigate a risk of tree failure. Hire at arm's length an arborist and assess each tree and give us the results. What is the rush? Are the trees about to fall over next week? Should they be ill? Can they be treated and saved? We must not disregard the necessity of elder trees that interact and aid in the health of all trees, the young especially, as they are nursed by the elders. Gibsons has so few trees left. Please have these elder trees assessed again before they are killed and gone forever. Please reconsider this decision and get a second opinion. I might add planting 400 trees is folly and not sustainable, and tree failure is guaranteed. Thank you. So I totally agree with that message. I don't get what the 400 trees thing is, but I have seen at Gibsons Elementary tons of trees marked for chopping down. And as you know, I went to Gibsons Elementary, and I always really enjoyed the grove of trees there. There's 3 fields, and between the second and third fields, there's a big grove of trees, and there's also trees all around the top field. And those trees were just like the best place ever for me and my friends to hang out. So I don't know for sure that they're planning to cut down all these trees, but I have seen a few trees already cut down, and that many of them have spray painted X's on them. And I was wondering what the town stance is on this, and if we have any options to try to make them not cut down this grove of trees, because I definitely think there's lots of value to them.
At this point in time, it's a school district challenge. They have identified the trees through an arborist as being dangerous. It's not always the tree. I actually think that they could do a kind of a spiral cut and go up the trees and remove the bigger branches. And that's what I've done on properties that I've owned, because it's oftentimes the larger branches that might fall in a windstorm on children below. And it's risk management of the school district. So when they came to us for a permit, our response was, do your consultation with the community first, because we weren't going to be part of going to the community and saying, we have a permit for the town to cut these trees. Right now, they don't have a permit to cut the trees. And so we've asked them to go out and do that consultation. There was quite a backlash when the last set of trees were cut, because there was no consultation, at least minimal consultation. And I too have walked that grove, seen the marked trees, the numbered and marked trees. I'd encourage all of council to do that, because I look at them and I say, what's going to make this tree fall down? But the challenge is that when a property owner comes to you and says, we've had an arborist assess these trees and has identified them as unsafe, and if we turn around and say, no, we're not going to let you cut the trees, we then accept the liability for that tree as a community, because we have told them not to cut a tree down that they intended to cut. So that's one of the challenges that we have. So we have an arborist on staff as well, and she would be the one who would issue the permit ultimately. She has to be satisfied with the reporting from the school district supporting their application. But we also said to the school district, letters not in the file, but we sent them a letter and said, share with us the results of your consultation before we issue a permit. So we haven't seen that yet. But I would certainly make your views known to the school district, because that's what they're supposed to be doing right now, is consulting on those trees. And the intention is that they be taken down during spring break. That's a target time frame.
Okay, I'll bring that up in student council then as soon as I can.
Well, you guys are all sleeping. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Councilor Ladwick.
I actually appreciate Colton bringing this up, because I have to admit, I find this whole system so flawed, because as far as I understand, so yes, I totally agree with you. If an arborist says there's a danger and we go against it, then we're liable. But I believe if the arborist says they're okay and then a tree falls down, they're liable. So there's no incentive to save a tree. It's just everyone's like, okay, cut it down. That's the safe play. And I find this really sad, because it seems like we're just cutting down everything to avoid liability. And
well, my feeling is it's not fair of me to say this, but I've dealt with large trees on private property, my own private property. You have too, Councilor Ladwick. And we called a tree place one time for our property on Shasta Road. And we had the guy look at the tree. He said, well, if you're asking me to cut them down, I won't do it. I said, no, we're not asking you to cut them down. We're asking you to make them safe. And the answer to that was to go up the tree and cut down every second or third branch of a certain diameter, drop the branches, because that's what was falling. And the wind would then blow through that tree and make it much more resistant, less resistant to the wind and much more resistant to falling. And I better not say what I'm going to say, because Connie will report the newspaper and I'll look like, but my sense is I believe there are options, and those options may cost the school district, whereas cutting the trees down, the option is paid for by the trees that are cut.
I'm right there with you, Mayor Beamish.
Councilor Didrat?
Yeah, I feel extremely impacted emotionally, because in name of safety, we are putting ourselves in this super bubble. One thing I recall is with when we grew up, we're climbing trees and we were, playing on the ground, and then suddenly playgrounds are all safe, are all with materials that people cannot hurt. And now they're finding that this is not even good for the kids. So yeah, I fear this thing, everything in name of safety, and then we are destroying everything. And I understand the rationale. I totally get it, right? But at the same time, yeah, they're gonna plant 10 times more. I don't know if it's gonna be there, but what's gonna happen when these trees in 30, 40 years? It's gonna be the same. They're gonna be dangerous. They're gonna cut. So that's the part that, because this is a place that people would walk, or are they going to protect? They could protect now and maybe have some passage that the kids can walk through and don't go under the trees, whatever. But this part upsets me, because you can always find a reason to find that a tree could be dangerous. I have a giant tree in front of my house. Every time there's a storm, I look at to see if it's gonna fall. Hey, it's a potential liability. It is. Even looking health, I don't know if under the tree are we gonna cut? So that's the part that I wish there was, like, when you are doing, is the same issue as peer review, right? When we had the issue with the George going in the aquifer, can we get a peer review from more than one expert, right? So can we get different opinions? And I feel very uneasy, because in one way we are lobbying for a tree bylaw, and we have a tree bylaw, but we are lobbying, we want people to how to say, sorry, what's the terminology? Well, they have to comply with the tree bylaw, and they are penalized if they do. But if someone comes in advance, say, well, we need to cut 40 trees, and just one report, and this is enough. So yeah,
that's why we asked them. That's why we did not issue the permit when they asked. We said, do your consultation, get the community's views on this, and I'll bet you there's more kids at Elfie that went to Gibsons Elementary and enjoyed playing in those trees. Yes, Colton.
But you said earlier they plan to cut during spring break.
That's their request for the permit. They don't have their permit yet.
Okay. I just think there's so much value to this grove of trees. When I went there as a kid, and I still am a kid, but when I went there as an elementary school kid, I just would go in there all the time. I think it's really entertaining and enriching too, to just go around the trees and enjoy that during the break time at school.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll leave that with you. And I certainly don't disagree, and have walked through there and looked at the tree. My wife works at Gibsons Elementary, so that she understands that the kids go hiding in those trees. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Now we'll go to Donna Thomas.
Oh, there.
Thank you. Thank you, Colton, for bringing that up. I just had 2 people down at my house last week in tears over it. And some beautiful letters written that didn't get published, including other kids who've gone to that school, who've grown up now and who enjoyed those trees. And if we were walking in the woods, I think we wouldn't go out on a windy day. I think children can be taught not to run out in front of traffic, how to behave around the wildlife. So congratulations for bringing it up. I'm delighted. I'm delighted to hear from Mayor Beamish that the permit hasn't been issued and they're supposed to be consulting. Well, they haven't consulted with any of us and we've been screaming. Anyway, my question is, the construction and building industry, I'm wondering if anyone on council would be willing, I know you're pretty busy, but I wonder if you would be willing, when you're looking at trying to work collaboratively with the construction and building industry. I don't like the idea of jobs at any cost, and it's a bit of a macho industry, by the way. So I was wondering if anybody on council would, at any presentation, ask for some safety records in terms of injuries for construction industry workers. When I did advocacy, which I did for about 25 years, that was always a difficulty.
Yeah. Workers, WorkSafe BC should probably have those records and that information.
Yeah, I'd like to see it because sometimes maybe not everybody, but many people who came in to see us were encouraged by their especially if they were non-union, to just forget about it. If they'd injured themselves, just go home and have a rest.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more questions about their safety records, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Beamish, you have one more person waiting. Just one moment.
Okay, thank you.
You're being joined by Judith Bonkoff.
Good evening, Judith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm just speaking to an item on the agenda tonight, and I actually didn't hear it pass or anything. I guess it was just the presentation of the minutes for the Holland Park Committee.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just I don't know how to express this. Very, very concerned about this project, in that just the whole process on how it's going about and how we're going to get the public. I've heard, I went to one of the meetings. I understand that there's a way to get the public involved, but to me, this is like a huge part of Gibsons, and we really need to get the public involved. So at this point, you've got minutes that you've just been approved, and I read them. And there is a presentation being worked on in the minutes. They talk about the presentation. So will this presentation have a budget in it? Will it have information for the public on how this money is really going to be raised and how much money it's going to cost?
I don't know if you've been able to do a budget. It's such a large project. So Councilor DeAndrade, I'll let you speak to that. Sorry, Councilor Ladwig, I'll let you speak to that as chair of the committee.
Yeah, thanks, Judith. At this point in the process, what the committee is working on is a presentation that will be brought to the community to seek the community's interest or support in kind of rethinking how we use Holland lands. And so, we're at a point right now where 3 of the tenants on the Holland lands have expressed a need for expansion. And so we can either go about expanding those tenants individually and not have a unified look and not benefit from the opportunity of collaborating together. Or we can collaborate together where we start to improve the biological diversity on that site, improve the connectivity and pathways, and make that site just a more usable, engaging part of our lower Gibsons area. In order to do that, there's different forms and ways of going about it. And one of them is, so we can either just do individual fundraising. We can partition off a portion of it we could subdivide a portion of it and use those funds as seed money to help pay for the overall project. or we can do a kind of hybrid model in between. And so what we're going out to the community, or will be going out to the community, is to seek input from the community on kind of what of those options do they like, which option is preferred, and how would they like us to proceed with the next phase. And the next phase is when we start to talk about, once we get a clear picture from the community as to what model they'd like us to embark on, then we start looking at, well, what will that cost? How will we fund it? You know, hiring some kind of a business consultant to help us put a financial plan together. And like I've said before, and I'll continue to say, this project could fail or be put aside at any one of these steps. So maybe we'll do the business proposal and realize, okay, it's just not feasible. We don't know. It's too big of an initiative to give you all those answers up front. Like, I know everybody would like all the answers right now, but it's just too complex of a project. So we're kind of working away at it step by step. And the first step is just finding out what the community wants us to do with that land.
Thank you. I just can't emphasize enough how hard it is to be interested in something if you don't really know, the nuts and bolts. And, that is a difficult hurdle, for you. And, to get a reading. I have been to quite a few public meetings in this town, and one specifically on Stonehurst, there was hardly anybody there. And it makes me very, very, worried that not enough input will happen. And therefore, the public opinion is gauged on a very few opinions.
I will not do that. I work on consultation in my life. We will make sure that we get the word out and that people know about it and we get meaningful engagement on it. I'm not going to have my name on something that's just slid through in a week. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judith. Judith, while you're there, before you go away, I'm just going to see if either Mark or Manny have an update on the testing of that material on the waterfront.
Oh, I was going to ask about that, but I thought I should only ask one question. Okay.
That's okay, I'll ask. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I was hoping to have heard about it today. We should get the results any day. We had to work with the lab so that the methodology was valid from their purposes, and with our folks at the treatment plant as well. Paul been helping us with that. So we'll test that out, and as soon as we arrive, and then we'll let people know what that is. And there's the direction from council to put adequate signage on that site. And depending on what it is, we'll have to work with the owner as well as ensuring that is not, regardless of the substance, it shouldn't be coming across the pathway. We just haven't taken any action because obviously we have to involve the property owners, and we want to ascertain, first of all, what are we dealing with here. If it's just water spewing out of a site is one thing. We don't have any reason to believe there is anything different than that, but we will know very soon what it is.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor D'Andrade?
That's a question for our CAO. Just on that note, given that Waterline, it's an expert on, obviously, on aquifers, and given that we got an article from another, forgot the place, Vernon, I believe, that has the same situation, has any discussion with Waterline if this is a possibility, or perhaps this may be done after? I'm just curious because they understand the composition of our aquifer.
That's for you, Mr. Mayor. So for this particular purpose, without the results, we haven't engaged Waterline until we have more information.
Okay.
But I do know that originally, going back a few years when that site was still a contaminated site, and through the process of some of our first submissions to the province were with support from Waterline, and I think forgot the lady's name that used to advise us on water issues. So we have engaged consultants as needed, and at this point we don't believe it would be necessary. But yeah, they're certainly very familiar with the situation in a development scenario. For example, they've been, as you know, collecting information that we get on any of the sites in Gibsons that goes into adding more value to the aquifer model that they maintain on our behalf. But this is what we're talking about at this point, is a very superficial water, no pun intended. But more to come.
More to come. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you, Manny. Thank you, Judith. Glad you brought it up. Okay. I see no further questions. We'll go now then to motion to close. We have an in-camera meeting. We always have an in-camera meeting. And that's where we do the real business, by the way, folks, all the secrets. Sorry. A recommendation, the meeting be closed in accordance with section 91, a position or an officer, 92B, terms of a contract of the community charter. Moved by Councillor Crowell, second by Councillor Ludwig. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Colton, thank you for bringing that issue up tonight. That's exactly why you're on council.
Yeah, thanks, Colton.
Thank you. Okay, let's all stay here until we get the all clear. Good meeting. Hey, there he is. Looks like the next meeting is not going to go quite as easy.